Starbound whispers. The evacuation siren wailed its 3-minute warning as Mira Sato stood at the observation deck watching Earth through the massive viewport. Final departure preparations for Horizon Flight 37 now commencing, announced the automated voice throughout Celestis Station's corridors. All authorized passengers report to docking bay. See Mira's fingers trace the edge of her relocation badge, its weight seemingly increasing with each passing second. Her atmospheric engineering skills had earned her a coveted spot on humanity's grandest exodus. But something kept her frozen at the window, staring at the fractured planet below. "Yuri, still here?" came a voice from behind. She didn't need to turn to recognize who it belonged to. "So are you, Jaden?" she responded, finally glancing back at him. Jaden Reed stood in the doorway, his preservation specialist uniform wrinkled and stained with various shades of soil and plant residue. His dark hair fell across his forehead in a way that had always distracted Mira during their environmental council meetings. "Not planning to board today," he said with a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Someone has to stay behind to mind the gardens." The evacuation order was clear, Mira said, her voice softening despite her attempt at professional distance. "Preservation team transfers begin tomorrow. All remaining biological samples are scheduled for secure transport." Jaden moved to stand beside her at the viewport. "That's what they say," he replied. "But I've seen the manifest. They're taking less than 8% of our biodiversity archives. The rest," he gestured vaguely toward Earth, "apparently isn't worth saving." The siren sounded again. 2-minute warning for Horizon. Flight 37, your transport. Jaden said. Mira clutched her travel pack tighter. "Yes. I heard New Terra is beautiful," he offered. "Perfect atmospheric conditions, stable gravity. No cleanup required." "That's what they tell us," Mira said. "A fresh start." Jaden's hand brushed against hers. "So briefly it might have been accidental. Nothing stays fresh forever," he whispered. The station trembled slightly as another shuttle disengaged from a distant docking port. Celestis was slowly being dismantled piece by piece. A grand structure, designed to house 10,000, reduced to a skeleton crew of barely 200, mostly technicians and preservation specialists like Jaden, who would manage the final shutdown. "Come with me," Mira said suddenly, surprising herself. Jaden's eyes widened. "What?" "I have influence. I could get you assigned to the atmospheric adjustment team. Your botanical knowledge would be valuable." He shook his head. "My work isn't finished here. There's nothing left to save," Mira argued, gesturing toward the damaged Earth below them. "That's where you're wrong." Jaden reached into his pocket and withdrew a small transparent cylinder containing what appeared to be ordinary soil. "This is why I can't leave." "Dirt?" Mira asked, confused. "Something much more important," Jaden replied. "Something worth staying for." The final warning siren blared. 1-minute warning for Horizon Flight 37. All passengers must board immediately. Jaden's hand found hers again. This time deliberately. "Mira," he said. "I know we've always been colleagues, nothing more, but I need someone I can trust. Someone who understands atmospheric reconditioning. Someone like you." "You're asking me to miss my flight," she said quietly. "I'm asking you to consider a different destination," he replied. "One that doesn't run away from our mistakes." Mira's communicator beeped urgently. The docking officer's voice came through. "Engineer Sato, your presence is required at the boarding gate immediately. Your clearance window expires in 47 seconds. She looked from the communicator to Jaden's face, seeing something there she'd never allowed herself to notice before. Something that made the badge in her hand seem suddenly weightless. "What exactly are you planning?" she asked. "Something impossible." Jaden smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "But I can't do it alone." Mira took one last look at the viewport, at the broken world suspended below them. Then she silenced her communicator. Between worlds. The emergency lights in Habitat Ring 7 flickered as Mira followed Jaden through the increasingly abandoned corridors of Celestis Station. "They're shutting down power sectors faster than scheduled," Jaden explained, leading her, past what had once been a thriving commercial district, Administration wants to encourage stragglers to leave. Mira's comm device buzzed relentlessly. Every few minutes, another message from flight control demanding explanation for her missed departure. "They'll reassign my spot within hours," she said. "Do you regret it?" Jaden asked. Pausing at an intersection to check for security drones, Mira considered the question. "Ask me tomorrow," she replied. Jaden's research lab occupied a once bustling botanical bay, now eerily silent except for the soft hum of specialized growth lamps. The air inside felt different, richer somehow, as if the oxygen percentage had been deliberately increased. "Welcome to what's left of Project Genesis," Jaden said, sweeping his arm toward rows of specialized growth chambers, the officially canceled but unofficially continued last-ditch effort to save our planet. Mira moved closer to examine the chambers. Several contained soil samples with tiny green shoots, barely breaking the surface. "These are Earth-native species," she observed. "I thought they couldn't survive anymore." "They couldn't," Jaden confirmed, "until Dr. Chen created this." He approached a sealed container in the center of the lab. Inside was a swirling violet substance unlike anything Mira had seen. "Adaptive microbiological matrix," he explained. "It bonds with plant cellular structures, allowing them to process toxins and accelerate atmospheric conversion." "You're talking about terraforming," Mira whispered. "But Earth's damage is too extensive. Every model shows at least 8 centuries of recovery time." "Every official model," Jaden corrected. Dr. Chen discovered something different before they reassigned her to Horizon, then mysteriously deleted her research. Fortunately, came a new voice from the doorway. She had a backup plan. Mira turned to see a tall woman with intricate braids and serious eyes. "This is Aya," Jaden introduced, "our remaining biochemist and the only other person who knows what we're attempting." "Former biochemist," Aya clarified. "Now I'm just a gardener hoping for a miracle." Her gaze settled on Mira. "So you're the atmospheric specialist Jaden wouldn't stop talking about." Mira felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "He talked about me?" "Incessantly," Aya smiled, "though he never mentioned you'd actually stay." Before Mira could respond, an alarm blared throughout the station. A computerized voice announced, "Attention all remaining personnel. Emergency protocol initiated level 4, atmospheric regulation system failure, detected in rings 6 through 9. Please proceed to emergency shelters." Jaden exchanged a knowing look with Aya. "That's the 4th failure this week," he said grimly. "They're accelerating the decommissioning." "Without proper shutdown protocols," Mira added. "They're getting careless. That could release containment toxins into—" She stopped abruptly. "Into the very chambers you're trying to use for restoration." "Exactly," Jaden confirmed. "We need your help, Mira. Your expertise could be the difference between success and failure." Mira's mind raced through calculations and possibilities. Her specialty had always been environmental systems, creating sustainable atmosphere within artificial constraints. She'd never applied her knowledge to planetary restoration. But the principles were similar, just vastly different in scale. "Show me everything," she said finally. As hours passed, Mira immersed herself in their research. The violet substance, called Reviva, could theoretically accelerate Earth's healing by centuries, but only if properly introduced into the atmosphere at specific coordinates. "The problem is delivery," Aya explained as they reviewed simulations. "We need to seed the stratosphere at precisely calculated points, but with station resources being dismantled, we need to work with what we have," Mira finished. "I might know a way." She pulled up the station schematics focusing on the atmospheric control systems. These regulation pods were designed to be jettisoned in case of catastrophic station failure. They contain miniaturized atmospheric processors. "Could we reprogram them?" Jaden asked, standing so close behind her that she could feel his breath on her neck. "Possibly," Mira replied, trying to maintain focus despite his proximity. "We'd need to override safety protocols and reconfigure deployment trajectories, but it could work." That night, as they continued working, the station grew quieter around them. Celestis was dying. Sections went dark as power was systematically redirected. Away from windows, it was easy to forget they were suspended in space, orbiting a broken world. During a rare break, Mira found herself alone with Jaden in the observation lounge. The Earth below them looked different somehow, perhaps just a trick of light, or perhaps her perspective had changed. "Why did you really stay?" Jaden asked softly. "You had everything. Secured a new life, guaranteed safety." Mira watched Earth rotate slowly beneath them. "When I was younger, my grandmother told me about cherry blossoms in spring, how the petals would fall like pink snow. She said, I've only seen them in simulations. Earth's been dying my entire life. Yet I became an atmospheric engineer because some part of me always hoped." Her voice trailed off. Jaden's hand found hers in the dim light. "I stayed because running away felt wrong," she continued, "because sometimes the harder path is the right one." She turned to face him. "And because there was something unfinished. Here's something important." "The project?" Jaden asked, his voice barely audible. "Not just the project," Mira admitted. The moment stretched between them, full of unspoken possibilities. Then the emergency lights flashed again, breaking the spell. "Atmospheric failure in Ring 5. The automated voice announced. "All personnel evacuate immediately." Jaden's expression hardened. "That's right next to the lab. They're getting closer." "Then we work faster," Mira said. "We have 48 hours at most before they shut down our section." As they hurried back to the lab, Jaden caught her arm. "Mira," he said, "if this doesn't work, if we fail, then we fail together," she replied. "But I'm not giving up on Earth, not when we might be its last chance." He nodded, his expression resolute, yet somehow vulnerable. Together. Then their fingers remained intertwined as they raced against time, against the dying station, against the seeming impossibility of their task. But for the first time since Earth began its collapse, Mira felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. The last garden. The emergency lighting in the laboratory cast everything in a dim red glow as Mira completed the final calculations for the atmospheric pods. "If we position the release points here," she indicated points on the holographic globe, "and here the Reviva should disperse through these air current patterns, maximizing coverage across the northern hemisphere." Jaden leaned closer, his shoulder brushing against hers. "What about the southern dispersal?" he asked, his voice low and focused. "That's where we'll need Aya's modified formula." Mira replied, "The southern patterns are more erratic, requiring a more resilient strain." From across the room, Aya looked up from her microscope. "The enhanced Reviva is responding well to the simulation tests," she reported. "But I need another 6 hours to complete stability protocols." "We don't have 6 hours," Cooper interrupted from his station at the security terminal. Cooper Kai had joined their small rebellion. Just yesterday, a communications specialist who'd chosen to miss his own evacuation after overhearing their plans. "Station security is redirecting power from Section 4. They'll reach our quadrant by morning." Mira felt the weight of impossibility, pressing down but refused to surrender to it. "Then we work faster," she insisted. "Cooper, can you delay the power transfer?" He nodded, fingers already flying across the terminal. "I can create some system errors that should buy us maybe 3 hours, but after that they'll send techs to investigate." Jaden moved to a sealed container, retrieving 4 small vials of glowing purple liquid. "Then we deploy what we have ready," he decided. "Even if it's not perfect, it's our only chance." Mira watched him work, struck by the quiet determination in his movements. The man who had convinced her to abandon guaranteed safety for an impossible dream now looked almost serene despite their desperate circumstances. Their eyes met briefly across the lab, a wordless exchange that somehow communicated more than hours of conversation. "You never told me how you got involved in this," Mira said later as they worked side by side reconfiguring the atmospheric pods. Jaden's hands stilled for a moment. "My mother was part of the original Earth Restoration Committee," he explained. "She believed rehabilitation was possible even when everyone else had given up. When she died, I inherited her research along with her stubbornness. he added with a small smile. She would be proud, Mira said softly. I hope so. Jaden's voice held a vulnerability she rarely heard. Sometimes I wonder if we're just postponing the inevitable if Earth is already too far gone. Mira's hand covered his. Then we're both fools, she said. Fortunately, that's my favorite kind of company. A crash from across the room interrupted the moment Aya stood amid broken glass, the contents of a test tube spilling across the floor. The compound is destabilizing, she exclaimed. Something's wrong with the base formula. The next hours passed in a blur of desperate science and improvisation. As Mira and Aya worked to salvage the Reviva formula, Cooper monitored security channels and Jaden reconfigured the deployment pods. Their small team worked with the synchronicity of people bound by a common, impossible purpose. It was during a rare quiet moment when most of the team had collapsed into exhausted sleep that Mira found herself alone with Jaden in the station's small arboretum, the last remaining green space aboard Celestis. The air smelled of soil and growing things, a stark contrast to the sterile corridors outside. I used to come here when decisions felt too heavy, Jaden admitted, brushing his fingers against the leaves of a small tree. There's something about being surrounded by life that puts everything in perspective. Mira watched his profile in the soft, bioluminescent lighting. Why didn't you tell me about the risks? She asked. The real risks. The Reviva formula is experimental, untested. The pods might not deploy correctly, and even if they do, success is far from guaranteed. Would it have changed your decision? He countered. She considered this. No. She finally answered, but I would have liked the choice to be fully informed. You're right. Jaden turned to face her. I was afraid if I told you everything you might make the sensible choice, and selfishly, I wanted you to stay. The admission hung between them. Mira stepped closer. Why? Because you see possibilities where others see only endings, he said. Because your mind works in ways that amaze me. And because... He hesitated, his confidence faltering. Because, she prompted. Because, from the first day you joined the Environmental Council, I've been drawn to you. Jaden admitted. Your brilliance, your determination, the way you fight for what matters. There's a fire in you, Mira. Something rare and worth preserving, just like Earth. The station hummed around them as Mira processed his words. In the artificial gravity of Celestis, she felt suddenly weightless. Her hand rose to touch his face, fingers tracing the contour of his jawline. That might be the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me, she whispered. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question rather than a demand. But it quickly deepened, becoming something more urgent, as if they both suddenly remembered their countdown to either salvation or failure. Jaden's arms encircled her, pulling her closer against him. Her fingers threaded through his hair as the kiss intensified, the small space between them vanishing entirely. A distant alarm broke the moment. Warning, Section 3 decompression protocols. Initiating, announced the automated system. All personnel must evacuate immediately. They separated, breathless, as reality crashed back. They're moving faster than we anticipated. Jaden said, his voice hoarse. Mira nodded, reluctantly pulling away, though her hand remained in his. Then so must we, she replied. As they hurried back to the lab, Mira felt something had fundamentally shifted, not just between them, but within herself. The mission had become more than scientific possibility. It had become deeply personal, a future she wanted not just for humanity but for herself, for them. Cooper met them at the lab entrance, his expression grim. We have a problem, he announced. Security has ordered a full inspection of all remaining laboratories. Commander Rena herself is leading the team. They'll be here within the hour. Then we launch now, Jaden decided, ready or not. Aya looked up alarmed. The southern formula is still unstable. We use what we have, Jaden insisted. We may not get another chance. As they frantically prepared for premature deployment, Mira caught Jaden's eye across the chaos of the lab. In the midst of their impossible mission, Something equally improbable had bloomed, and whatever came next, they would face it together. Our breaking orbit. Alarms screamed through the station as Mira and Jaden raced to secure the atmospheric pods. Security override in progress, warned the computer. Unauthorized access detected in Laboratory 7. They're trying to lock us out, Cooper shouted over the noise, his fingers flying across the terminal. I can hold them for maybe 2 minutes. Aya worked frantically filling the final deployment pod. The Northern Hemisphere formula is ready, but the Southern solution is unstable, she reported. If we deploy, both we risk catastrophic interaction. Jaden met Mira's eyes across the room, a silent question passing between them. We deploy the Northern pods. Mira decided. It's not perfect, but it's our only chance. The laboratory doors shuddered as security forces attempted to override the locks. This is Commander Rena, came a stern voice through the intercom. Surrender the research materials immediately. All unauthorized projects have been terminated by executive order. Pods ready for deployment. Aya announced. Cooper's terminal flashed warning signals. Security breach imminent. He warned. Jaden moved to Mira, pulling her close in the chaos. Whatever happens next, he whispered against her hair. Finding you made everything worthwhile. Their lips met briefly desperately as the doors began to slide open. Deploy now! Mira shouted. Jaden hit the launch sequence. The pod bay doors opened to the vacuum of space as specialized canisters shot toward Earth, trailing violet particles that glowed against the darkness. Commander Rena burst into the lab, flanked by security officers. Stop immediately, she ordered. But it was too late. The pods had launched, disappearing into Earth's upper atmosphere. What have you done? Rena demanded. Given Earth a chance? Jaden answered, standing protectively in front of Mira. As security forces surrounded them, Mira's hand found Jaden's. Together. She whispered, whatever comes next. Genesis Bloom. 6 months later, Mira stood at the observation deck watching Earth through Celestis's last functioning viewport. The station was nearly deserted now. Only their small team remained behind after receiving reluctant permission to monitor their foolish experiment, as Commander Rena had called it before departing on the final evacuation ship. It's working, Jaden said softly, coming to stand beside her. His arm slipped around her waist, a familiar comfort. Look at the atmospheric readings. The holographic display showed steadily improving. Conditions patches of green had appeared where there had been only barren wasteland. The Northern Hemisphere glowed with the faint purple hue of Reviva-enhanced plant life, slowly spreading cleansing toxins, reclaiming the planet. The Southern formula is finally stabilized, Aya reported, joining them with Cooper at her side. We can deploy within the week. Mira leaned her head against Jaden's shoulder. We did the impossible, she murmured. Not yet, he replied, kissing her temple. But we've begun. Later that night, in their small quarters repurposed from what had once been officers' housing, Mira traced lazy patterns across Jaden's chest as they lay entwined. Do you ever regret staying? She asked. He captured her wandering hand, bringing it to his lips. Never, he answered with certainty. New Terra might offer safety, but Earth is offering rebirth, and you. He added, pulling her closer. You offered me love when I least expected it. Even if it takes decades? She asked. Even if we never see Earth fully restored? Even then, Jaden promised, some journeys matter more than destinations. Mira settled against him, listening to his heartbeat. Then we continue, she whispered, one day at a time. Outside their window, Earth continued, its slow healing. The impossible dream taking root while above a dying station housed the last humans who had refused to abandon home. The first seeds of tomorrow taking root in both a planet and in hearts that had dared to hope from destruction. They had found creation. From endings had come beginnings. And in the space between stars and possibilities, they had found each other. The most unexpected miracle of all,